Right, been cleaning up the axe head. This is the bottom. Don't forget the longer beard points towards the handle, and the shorter beard, the shorter flare, is upwards. So here we are, looking at the bottom of the eye, and here we had a little bit here which protruded in, and inside the tunnel there was a bit that stuck out. I'll smooth those off. I might do a little bit more on here. Taking off any sharp edges along the edge. This is especially important on the bottom, because what happened on this axe handle was on one side. You can see here there was a very hard and sharp line. You can just see the end of it where this flap of bird wood is. On the other side, not so much. Clean this up with a draw knife and taking it down a little bit. I'll take some more off of this before I do a trial fitting on the head. Basically, you do your trial fitting because this is an iterative process. It's very difficult to fit this all in one go. I certainly can't. So you try it, find out as it slides on where it leaves witnesses, either in a shiny bit of wood or a bit of rust where it's been. Then you take those high spots off, and you keep doing that until you get the fit that you want. And then you fit the wedges, and I haven't made the wedge yet. Back in a while. Right, just done the first trial fitting on the refitting the axe haft, and you can see here where the axe head has come down and raised another little burr of wood, but nothing on the other side. And you can just about see with the eye of faith that this side is a little bit fatter than the other side. The other thing you'll see is there's no extra marks on here, which might be why this axe head worked loose in the first place. Looks like this is not quite long enough from this dimension to this dimension for this part of the axe haft to fit the eye properly. You can get it fitted properly with the wedge in the top. And by the way, I've just taken the split down a little bit further with a hacksaw. I tend to use a hacksaw as it's a little bit narrower than a panel saw. Take less timber away, less to sweat out with your wedge. And to get the axe to sit really nice and hard, you can just plonk it on and tap it down on a nice flat piece of timber on the floor. Then you turn it over and you strike the butt with a hammer like this one with a flat peen, so you don't split this end. This is the fawn's foot of the axe, by the way. If you imagine this without the truncation on it here, which I think has been added later in the life of the axe. So this is a truncated fawn foot to give you something to strike. Probably got added when the head started working loose. This is the fawn's foot, and this is basically this swelling here, which is belled in both dimensions, stops your hand from flying off the bottom of the axe. Remember, when using an axe, if you're using it right-handed, your right hand goes to the bottom of the haft, and you don't use gloves because then you can't feel what the axe is doing. Also done a first trial fit of this chap and a little bit of a clean up. I'm not going to make it shiny. I made these shiny so I could read this. They'll dull over time. I've cleaned up some of the rust, and this is basically nearly a century's worth of patina, so I'm going to leave that there because I'm sentimental. But I've uncovered what I thought was a lump of rust, had a bit of paint on it. It says 1 3/4, and that'll be the mass of the head, 1 3/4 pounds. As this was made when Britain still had an empire, so that's imperial measure. And that's the haft. I've worked on it on this side, taking it down with a draw knife, but I haven't done this side yet, and you can see that little edge there. I'm going to take that off in a moment and then drop the thing down. I can't drop very far, or again it's going to get down into here. and basically the head will slide down the handle as it works. But this is an old handle, and I don't want to go and buy a new handle or spend the huge amount of time it would take to make one. And I've basically taken off the stress razors, places where it was damaged. This one ended up being quite deep, but this is okay. And that's basically marking, because that's the initial orientation, and that goes towards the flat peen. It's usual that there's more damage on the side of a flat peen on a cross peen or a ball peen hammer than on the cross peen or the ball peen side. So I'll do that now and then come back to you. Oh yes, wedges. This is the wedge I've sorted out for this hammer. And it'll go on this way round, and I've basically taken this down. You can see it there. This is a bit of green heart, which is very hard timber but a little bit wild, and that fits in there and goes just about halfway through. It'll go down a little bit further when you give it a good smack. I know it's green heart because this was an offcut from Swanage Pier that I found bobbing in the water. Most of their pier legs are made out of green heart. Not very much of that left. It's nice hard timber and it'll look nice as a wedge. Back later. Right, another trial fitting on the hammer, and you can see all the way around here, except for in the front there where there's been a little bit of damage. It's very, very closely fitted, but if I come down much further I can get beyond this swelling into this narrower bit. So I'm actually going to cheat on this one. I don't think this hammer is going to get a huge amount of use. It won't be one I take to work, for instance. So instead of ending up with that, you see it's wider down below. I'm going to cheat by using some glue. Other glue apart from Gorilla Glue is available, but this is basically wood glue. And I'm basically going to smear the bit that goes in the eye of the tool with a bit of wood glue, knock it on, insert the wedge, which will also be smeared with a bit of wood glue, and I've taken the split down a little bit further and knocked a bit of this end off. It would have been protruding by about that much if I hadn't done it. And then finish this one up, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. The axe is a bit of ash, same as this handle, but this is more closely grained. It might be hickory. Doesn't look quite right for ash, but it's as hard as hard. And I basically used an ordinary metal file to knock that down and to shape it, because the draw knife, which I used on this one, wasn't really cutting it. Not really supposed to be a pun, but it kind of is. But if you look in here, you can see, as I said before, this hole in this eye, this aperture in this head, is a little bit longer than the dimensions of the haft. And you can see it on this end as well. This is the handle that this axe came with, so that might be why it worked loose. But it'll be a lot better than it was, because it was extremely loose. So we'll fit the wedges and then come back to you. I should go. Just taking the head off the hammer just to show you this. You can see that witness where the head has come down on the top of the haft, and here, see, this is shiny. Can you catch it? That's basically where it's gone again into the eye, and you've got another little witness here which a GoPro probably won't pick up, but basically the bottom of the bell in the eye of this head is now sitting really tightly on the haft all the way around 3/4. It's slightly slack here, it's tight here again where it's shiny, but once we get the wedge in there and a bit of the old wood glue, that hopefully will do for around the workshop. Right, there's the head glued and struck home. Taken that much off the protruding haft, and my wedge has got a little bit of wood glue on it, and you can see the split that I cut with a saw earlier goes in there, and then we'll use the hammer, quite a big hammer, slightly overkill, but I like the size of the peen compared with the size of the wedge. I'll put you down just for a second, hammer this home. Hang on, I'm going to have to turn you off, there's nowhere really to put you. Hold on. Right, that's fully home. So we'll cut that off flush and then drive the little metal wedges in and come back to you when that's done. If this splits, say it splits in the middle, that's where you put your metal wedge, but this hasn't split, it's driven home rather nicely. Right, all cut off, wedge fitted, and that's the steel wedge just about to be driven home. It's a reused one, actually came out of the axe, and I've taken the rust off. Notice the glove here, this is a metalworking vise, I haven't got room for a woodworking vise in here, one of these days I'll have one. It's got smooth jaws, but you can mark up the handle of your hammer. So I've used an old glove, I don't like wearing these, it's supposed to go in there and protect the handle. So here we go. Hope that works. Notice how hard it is to drive it in. There we go. And we'll just finish it off with the flap disc, which is over here because I'm dead lazy, and then come back to you. See you in a minute. So that's it, one refitted hammerhead on the original haft, or the haft that came with it, whether that's the original one, as I say, this is 18 years short of a century old, I don't really know. Nice ash haft, about on the limit of what was possible. You can see where the glue is here, not ideally fitted, but that's on there, it's pretty solid. You can see where the flap disc has taken down the edge of the end of the haft. Steel wedge and the hardwood wedge looks totally different. It's a little bit burnt because of the flat wheel, and there's a little bit of gapping at this end. That should be perfectly good to use around the workshop. It'll never get incredibly heavily used again. It won't be used at work, so like all day every day. So that's it. I hope that helps. Hope that gives you information. We won't finish the axe today as we need to make some wedges, but I'll show you the finished axe if I do something on axes, which is something I haven't done yet. Right, I should go. Right, back again. I meant to say that I'm going to clean up this face of the hammer, and possibly the cross peen as well. You can see they're well scarred. This will tell me if there are any cracks. I've cleaned up this half and this has been fine, but you can see it's all spalled off on this side, probably because it's been used by a right-handed man, and right-handed people tend to hit like that. Yeah, so it's more spalled on this side than the other side. I'll take all this down. I might lose up to about that much of the whole of the face, and the face will end up being flat across the top with a very, very slight dome, and relieved around the edge a bit like that. Whole thing feels a little bit top heavy. It would feel a little bit better with a slightly longer handle, but this will be fine for around the workshop. The other thing to note when you're actually fitting a head onto a haft is if the hammer has one heavy end, as you're striking the end of the haft to get it in the head, it might wander off. This end might droop slightly, so you need to have your hammer so that it fits directly square across the haft. This one doesn't quite. You can see it's up slightly that way. While I'm here, you can see but the metal wedge is of such a size and shape that it doesn't touch the outer edges of the eye. If it does that, it won't go fully home, it won't go home square. So that's it, re-hafting a hammer. Hope that's useful information. Also usable on axes and various other things, and we'll get back to the axe if we do a video on axes. Thank you very much.